Alright, I want to go over the homework for logic, chapter 1, section 3 here today. I just want to do about the first 10 problems. I already have the label down here, what these are, or what I've labeled them. But I'll discuss how we sort of reach it. Basically, we have this one. Figure A is a right triangle, and two of its sides have a length of 1 foot. Therefore, its third side is greater than 1 foot in length. Now, we can look at our list of some of the different types of mathematical, deduction, mathematical reasoning, arguments from definitions, arguments from scientific law. I've deleted the word arguments with this just because it's messed up. Categorical syllogism, hypothetical syllogism, etc. This one is a little bit of, we're depending upon definitions. We're also depending upon rules of math. So we would call this an argument based on math. And it would be deductive. So for your homework, you would write this as deductive, and thus it's write that it's an argument based on mathematics. Now, one thing to think about is you could say, well, this struck me as an argument based upon definitions. That's fine. I mean, if you did that, if you could explain that, I would probably accept that. That if your explanation. So if you want to write in your reason for why you labeled these, that would probably be a good idea. But essentially, I will be looking for a specific answer. But I also understand that, in all honesty, some of these can be more than one type. Okay? So this is deductive, and they're not always going to be just clearly, oh, this is deductive and it's an argument based. Sometimes it can be one where, it can be a little bit of the borderline. The most key thing is to be able to tell if it's deductive or inductive. There's no question about whether it's deductive or inductive. It's got to be one or the other. But why you call it deductive or why you call it inductive is maybe a little bit more debatable. Alright, number 2. Surely there are more logical systems in heaven and earth than are dreamt of by any logician. If a visitor from another planet were to descend upon the world, he might bring with him a formal logic unlike anything an earthling knows. It's probable, indeed almost certain, that our posterity will produce formal logical systems far different from those we now possess. So what's the conclusion? Well, to begin with, the conclusion, this is kind of a premise, this is a conclusion indicator of sorts. It is probable, indeed almost certain, is sort of saying this is the point, right? I mean, that is sort of standing out to say this is the point. And it's also saying this is a point that's probable, it's not 100%. So it's already telling you it's inductive, right? It's already said, hey, I'm inductive, okay? But so the conclusion is basically that our posterity will produce formal systems that are different from those we now possess. And that is somewhat of a prediction, okay? That's the way I've labeled it. But let's look at these. It could be a prediction, it could be statistical reasoning, not really there. There's no authority, so, is it a qualified authority? Well, there's no authority. Is it based on science? Well, not really. Causal reasoning. Well, maybe. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not seeing a cause effect. Analogical reason, I could see that. I could see that, I'm giving the analogy that space aliens would bring in other systems, and they would. You could see evidentiary reasoning, maybe. But I would say the most likely is that it is making a prediction about the future, and I would call it a prediction. This one here is our fiscal policy is akin to a Ponzi scheme as we keep selling bonds to pay interest on old debt. One envisions a day when our bonds will lose credibility and our future will be in the hands of China. Now, there's a lot of unstated stuff, but essentially, this is saying our fiscal policy is like a Ponzi scheme. It's giving you an analogy. It's an inductive analogical reasoning. And the reason is it's saying our system of government is kind of like a Ponzi scheme for our debt, and so we will probably suffer the same thing a Ponzi scheme will suffer. And so it's using an analogy, it's showing these two things are similar, so they must be true of both. Number 4, all essay contests are challenges that promote thinking. All challenges that promote thinking are educational experiences. Thus, all essay contests are educational experiences. We have these all statements, all this, all that, thus all something else. So we know we were using categorical statements. There are 2 premises, right? The ones with 4, 5, and 6 is the conclusion. 5 is a premise. So we know that we have 2 premises to 1 conclusion, and in fact it's saying all essay contests are blank, that what they're part of is a blank, our educational experiences, thus They're all educational experiences. And so it's a deductive categorical syllogism. Marla is a hypochondriac. Therefore, she always worries about her health. Now, what is a hypochondriac? Well, a hypochondriac is a person who always thinks they're sick or is worried about their health. Therefore, it follows from that very definition. And so this is a deductive argument based on a definition. Fairly clear. This one I didn't type out the whole problem. It says, suppose the events A1, A2, all the way to AN do for a partition, sample S, and E is an event, blah, 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 blah. This is clearly mathematical reasoning. It's deductive. Okay? We don't have to look much further. Amanda is taller than Jacqueline. Jacqueline is taller than Laura. Hence, it necessarily follows that Amanda is taller than Laura. In this case, it necessarily follows is a good indicator that it's deductive. Now, sometimes people will use words like that even though they don't have that kind of weight. They have an inductive argument. But you can at least stop and say, hey, it says it necessarily follows. So that's a key that it's deductive. So think that it may be deductive. And it's using the fact that one person is taller than the other and the other person is taller than them. And that's what we call logic of relations, if you remember. So we call that logic of relations, and I think I entered that in wrong. It's deductive logic of relations. Number 8. The truism everything is subjective is either trivial or false. It is either true that every belief must be formulated within a single psychological subject, but this is a trivial observation. If my opinion everything is subjective means that facts exist only in the mind, then it is false. Now this one's a little bit kind of like, whoa, this is all over the place. But in saying everything's either trivial or false, so we might kind of say, is this a disjunctive syllogism? Well, it could be, and I thought about that, but there are more than 3 premises. And what they're essentially doing is they're trying to say, this is the conclusion. The truism, everything is subjective, is either trivial or false. And then it gives reasoning. It says, if it's true that every belief is formulated within a single psychological subject, then that's a trivial observation. And if it's the other way, then that's false. And so it's basically depending upon this sort of causal reasoning process. That if that's the case, then this is the case. Maybe evidentiary reasoning. This one's a little hard to nail down, but it's clearly an inductive argument trying to base upon the way it foresees sort of the parts of the statement. Number 9. With the increased velocity of modern changes, we do not know what the world will be 100 years hence. For sure, the ideals of the generation of the year 2000 will be the same as the generation of the year 1900. Will not be the same as that of 1900. Nations will be governed by currents of political thought, which can no more anticipate than the 17th century can anticipate the political currents of the 18th, which still in part sway us. But whether the spirit of authority or that of freedom increases, Abraham Lincoln's legend will ever appear more luminous in the amalgamation of centuries because he was supremely incarnated both those spirits. This argument's a little weird because it's like I'm talking about how basically how we can't predict the future and what people will be like and what things will be like. And then it starts talking about Lincoln. And the conclusion really is that Lincoln will basically avoid change. We'll still think highly of him even though we will still think highly of him even though things will change. And so essentially they're making a prediction, which is an inductive argument. It could be an argument based upon evidentiary reasoning. I would accept that. I would accept a couple others, but it's clearly inductive. It's trying to make a statement about the way Lincoln is based upon the others. Alright, number 10. According to widely respected polls, 60% of the voters in Pennsylvania support Amelia Kerrigan for governor. Therefore, Kerrigan will probably win since the election is only 2 days away. This is making a bit of a prediction, but it's making a prediction all based upon statistics, and so we would call it inductive statistical reasoning. Alright, I hope that helps a little bit if you could follow those along and maybe see why. If you have further questions, ask. But, the key here is not to know exactly which category they're in, the type, like it's statistical reasoning or this or that. The key is to be able to tell if it's inductive or deductive. Those further categorizations are there to help clarify things for you, to help you see examples of types. And I want you to be able to label them, but that's not as important as simply being able to label it as either deductive or inductive. Alright, good luck, and if you have questions, remember to use the discussion board or email me. Thanks.